You may remember late last summer that I started working on an interactive FMV project with my good friend Courtney Jones called 5 Doors. We basically made a proof of concept for the project, and we built a door in my backyard to help bring our vision to life. Now, I always knew before I tore the door down that I wanted to create a short film for myself to create some good content for the channel, so I started mulling around some ideas for a way I could use the door to create a film of my own. I'm extremely fascinated with the idea of a paradox, and I knew that's where I wanted this story to start. I started kicking around ideas with the beginning of the film being the ending and the ending being the beginning, creating some sort of loop. And I also knew that I wanted the main character to encounter some sort of evil double once he made it inside the door. Having the physical door as a set piece went a long way into helping sell this project and to make it more believable and just make it interesting all around. I worked on the script for about a month, and once the script was done, I started looking around for an actor in my area and some locations that I could use. I knew that one of the locations was going to be my backyard, of course, where the door was built, and I also used a nearby hiking trail that's about 2 miles from my house just to give the locations a little bit of variety. Using my solo method doesn't necessarily mean that you have to actually act in the film as well, and I actually never intended to be the main actor in this film. I actually enlisted the services of a professional actor here in the area, but due to unforeseen circumstances, he had to back away from the project, so I had to step up and take on the lead role. Once that happened, I knew that a lot of things with the story were going to have to change, as in the original script actually had a pretty extensive chase and fight scene, and I knew that doing that on my own was going to be incredibly difficult. So I rewrote the script a little bit to make things a little bit more simpler and easier for me in the long run. And I was really disappointed in that because I've never really done a lot of action in my work, and I wanted to try and branch out and do something a little bit different. And unfortunately, that kind of fell through at the last minute. Now the script is done, I know I'm going to be acting as the main character, and I have my locations. It's time to start shooting. I filmed this entire project with my Panasonic GH5, which is absolutely falling apart, by the way. It is definitely time for me to upgrade my camera. The hot shoe on the top is broken. The mount on the bottom is broken. The battery door is falling off. So it's making it really hard to rig this camera and use it out in the field. So I'm definitely going to be looking into upgrading my camera hopefully sometime this year. And I've got my eye on the Blackmagic Pixis, but we'll see how that goes. I'm going to do a little bit more research. For sound, I use the Rode Wireless Pro. I absolutely love these wireless mics. This is the first time I've actually used them on a project of my own. We used them on 5 Doors, and I was super happy with how they turned out. The sound quality is perfect. They're easy to use. Highly recommend these mics. I actually picked up a lot of automobile noise from a nearby highway that's close to my house in a lot of the shots, and I actually live near a local airport. So I actually went back in and ADR'd a lot of the dialogue and added a lot of sound effects. A lot of the fog that you see in this short film was actually created not with a fog machine, but actually used an insect fogger. I think it's from Black Flag. Yeah, you just throw in some fog juice in this thing, hook up a propane tank to it, and it just makes some beautiful fog that you can use on the go. There's no wires, so you don't have to run any drop cords or anything like that. I really enjoyed using this instead of using my old fog machine that I have. You don't have to drag any drop cords anywhere. It really works great for remote locations like this when you're out in the woods and stuff. And the fog does a really good job of hanging in the air and sticking around, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend this fogger, and I will put a link in the description to it if you want to check it out for yourself. You'll notice that a lot of these one-man films that I make, I'm actually in the woods and it's always overcast. I do this because I want to use as little amount of gear as possible, and I don't want to have to worry about lighting anything. I find that shooting in this type of lighting outside creates a beautiful cinematic look, and even if it's not cloudy outside, you can usually shoot in like early morning or late evening and match up the shots pretty closely. I just really love the colors that I'm able to achieve when I shoot in an overcast day, or if it's just rain or it's getting ready to rain and the sky is cloudy. It just looks so beautiful. And when you're making a film by yourself, worrying about the camera and the sound is enough. And if you have to keep setting up lights for each shot, things are going to get really complicated and you're going to get really stressed out. The only thing about filming with this lighting style is that you're going to have to constantly worry about the light changing on you. If cloud cover moves, or if it's taking you too long to nail a specific shot, the lighting may change drastically when you're outdoors. So when you're not controlling the light in that method, things could get a little troublesome for you. A lot of my shooting days were actually ruined by weather, too much sunlight, too much rain. And on one particular day when I was trying to get some green screen shots with the door for the VFX, the wind, just like gale force winds, came out of nowhere and was blowing the door all over the place, and it was just really hard to contend with. So while you don't have to worry about setting up lights, you do have to worry about weather and quickly changing lighting conditions. So just keep that in mind. Now, I don't use autofocus, so getting focus when you're filming by yourself is a very big challenge. So I employ my good friend Hank, who I set up in the scenes, and I just use him to capture focus. This face may look familiar. This is the mask that I use in my film, The Worst of Fears and The Hammer. So I use this guy a lot when I'm trying to set up shots and get good focus. And if I need to, depending on the shot, I would just use faux camera movement in post-production to give that handheld camera look. The final thing I'll say about gear is that I shot this with the Sigma Art 18-35 lens. And one thing I really tried to keep in mind while filming this time was to keep my camera settings the same for each shot and my focal length. I set my focal length to 35 and just kept it there the entire time, and I made sure my camera settings were as close as possible for each shot. That way I don't have to fiddle around with matching shots in post-production, which is something that I struggle with quite a bit. I knew when I set out to make this project that I was going to be dealing with quite a few visual effects, seeing as how I was going to be dealing with a double, a portal to another world, and just another world in general. I knew I had my work cut out for me as far as visual effects went. Now, I don't normally recommend writing stories that are beyond the scope of your budget or your means, but in this case, with this story, I knew absolutely that this thing was going to have a ton of VFX work that I had to do in it. Some of you may know that I recently switched from Adobe Premiere, which I've been using for a very long time since I was in my teens, over to DaVinci Resolve. And when I took a look at the script and realized all the VFX that were going to be in this, I knew I was in for some work. But there's no better way to learn new software than to just throw yourself into the fire and force yourself to have to learn how to do things that you don't know how to do. When I started this project, I didn't even really know how to properly color grade or color correct in DaVinci Resolve. And I had to learn a ton about using a Fusion and the color tab and pulling off some of these green screen effects and stuff like that. So it was a huge learning curve for me. But now I am so much more confident heading into my next project with using DaVinci Resolve to pull it off. As far as the visual effects with the door, I used a green screen. I used the 3D keyer effect. I have to say that the depth map feature in DaVinci Resolve absolutely came in clutch for me on this project, and I'll definitely be using it again. It made it so easy for me to create scenes where the double and the original character were in the scene at the same time without having to, rotoscope or mask out and spend a lot of time doing that kind of tedious work. It makes it really easy to, cut out the background from your shots. Okay, we got the green screen put on the door. The wind has calmed down just enough. Hopefully I can pull this shot off good. Oh man, look at all that gray hair. Since I originally wrote this project for a professional actor, there were more dialogue lines in here than I've ever had to do as an actor myself personally. You'll notice that a lot of my older projects where I am the main character, there's not a lot of dialogue going on, so I don't have to really stretch my acting muscles very much. And I've never really gotten compliments or any negative comments on my acting in any of these things. So I'm not a professional actor, so this was a challenge for me to say the least, especially when I'm acting off a character that's not even really there, standing in front of me. So let me know what you think about my acting in this piece. Did I do a good job? Did I not? Should I stop acting altogether? I'd be interested to hear what you think about it. Another scene that was a challenge was when I was pulled through the portal and spat out the other side. I've never really done a lot of comedy in my work. I know this isn't like very funny comedy, but it is a little bit funny. The noises and the screams as I get thrown through the door. And I actually love adding comedy in my work. It's something I'm going to try to do a little bit more of in the future because I love funny scenes. David Lynch is one of my favorite directors, and he adds a lot of little quirky humor in his stuff as well as the darkness as well. So I like that dichotomy of those two things working against each other. So I really wanted to put a touch of that here, and I wanted to make this scene as comical as possible. I actually used an old mattress that we had and just laid it on the ground and just repeatedly threw myself through the air onto the mattress until I got a shot that I liked. But man, let me tell you, I am way too old to be doing crap like this. I woke up the next day sore as hell. And like I said, one of the biggest challenges with this project was filming the dialogue scene between two characters, especially since one of them's not really there and I couldn't act off of them. I actually messed up and crossed the 180-degree mark when filming this dialogue scene and had to basically flip one of the scenes horizontally in post to fix it. One little thing that I kept running into was just confusion of trying to get these angles when I'm filming a character that's not even there. Another challenge for this film was the smoke monster, or the smoke demon that appears. I'd actually intended this character to be another version of myself. You can kind of see me in the background of this one shot where I have the smoke on me, but I wanted it to be like a dark smoke version of the character, and it was a little bit more difficult to pull off than I thought. So it was just something that kind of naturally changed, and I just went with the flow. As I was making the visual effects of what this character actually ended up looking like. And there was actually one more scene at the end that I intended to shoot where the smoke demon actually had its hands on the shoulders of the main character and was like chanting some sort of incantation about being trapped in this world, and some kind of little evil rhyme. But that's something that just ended up proving too difficult to pull off, and I eventually cut that from the original script. I'm going to use this fishing line to pull the door shut really quick. And in post, I can just adjust it with reversing the video footage if I need to create the effect that the door is opening or closing on its own. So hopefully I can pull this off. I noticed in some of the test footage I shot that you can see the string, but if the shot's quick enough, hopefully no one will notice. One more scene of note is something that's kind of become a staple of my work, and that's these scenes where the character is like going through some sort of possession, or I'm not really sure what the word would be, but I filmed this scene in my garage, and I just took multiple takes of the same scene of the character shaking his head in pain and anguish and torment, I guess would be a great word for this. But I just filmed this multiple times and then superimposed them over top of one another using, opacity filters. Sped some of them up, slowed some of them down, and just overlaid them over top of one another. And there you have it. Now let's talk about sound. I mentioned earlier that I actually ADR'd a lot of the sound on this project due to picking up a lot of road noise outside. If you're not familiar with what that is, that's basically dialogue replacement. So I came into the studio and just watched back some of the scenes, and I would film replacement dialogue for a lot of the shots. This past year, I learned a really hard lesson about epidemic sound. I've been using epidemic sound for my films forever now and my YouTube content, and I have to say I learned a pretty hard realization about them as I was trying to get some of my old projects listed on streaming platforms through FilmHub. If you want to use any of Epidemic Sound's sound effects or music commercially, or if you want to get your work featured on streaming platforms, it is a pretty hefty fee, and I don't think I can recommend it for aspiring filmmakers or content creators. Don't get me wrong, it is great for YouTube, but if you're going beyond YouTube and you want to take things to the next level, I can't recommend them for that. So I think next year I may end up switching over to something like Soundstripe, where you pay one monthly fee, affordable monthly fee, and you can use their sound and music anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's on YouTube or other streaming platforms. So something to keep in mind. Speaking of sound design is one of my favorite parts of the filmmaking process. And I think if I wasn't a jack of all trades and I had one job in the film industry, it would probably be doing sound design for films. I love going in and replacing all the sound effects with crunchy footsteps on leaves and a wind in the trees, and redoing the ADR and the dialogue and stuff like that. I love that entire process. And if you notice the synth ambient theme that plays throughout this piece, I actually wrote that and performed that myself, and just watched the film and just, hit the keyboard in spots where I thought it sounded like it needed it. And that was a pretty cool and fun thing to do as well. So there you have it, guys. That is the making of The Door, my latest short film. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully I was able to answer all the questions that you might have about what went into making this thing. And hopefully I was able to achieve what I set out to do, which was making a one-man film and taking the quality up just a little bit closer to that Netflix quality that people are looking for when they're looking for a film to watch on streaming. So how do you think I did? Do you think I pulled it off? Did I get closer to that quality bar? Let me know in the comments below. Before I go, big thank you to all of our channel members who keep the lights on and support this channel on a monthly basis. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, just click the join button on the channel header to find out more. Channel members get access to exclusive perks, emojis, and early content before anyone else. If you haven't watched The Door yet, please check it out. There'll be a card for that right after this. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you so much for coming along on this filmmaking journey with me. I am Ryan, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.